Now let's discuss that further with Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol. Mr. Gosling, welcome to the program. Let's focus on this. Sheikh Naim Qassem emphasized that the U.S. cannot achieve its goals in West Asia without a stability in Lebanon. From your perspective, what makes Lebanon so geopolitically vital for American and Israeli calculations?
Well, look, it's not just the fact that Lebanon is such an important historical country. The coastline along the Levant there is where the Phoenicians were based, who invented the alphabet. This is the idea that you can use letters in a word rather than symbols, which is what the Egyptians and previous civilizations have been using. Lebanon is a massively important country in the world and holds all of our heritage in the palm of its hand. It's a massively, massively important country. And of course, the opposite is this monstrosity that has appeared next door. Israel, created by the British mainly, but also, of course, by people like Nelson Rockefeller, by Victor Rothschild in London, Rockefeller over in the United States. This is really a creation mimicking the medieval Crusader states. By us, people coming from my country in the past. I mean, it's been planned, I think, probably something like 100 years ago to begin this whole process, maybe even longer. But anyway, the point is that the borders of Lebanon should be not be violated, and they're being violated all the time. I was just reading a report last week that the bunker buster bomb that the Israelis and the Americans fired that killed Nasrallah, the previous leader of Hezbollah. The dust has been brought to Bideford in this country with a proper chain of custody from that bomb attack, and depleted uranium has been discovered in the dust. So this is an illegal weapon. You cannot use depleted uranium, and also it's actually not like an atomic weapon. It's a form of metal which will penetrate through, and it's used in bunker buster bombs. But it is radioactive, and it leaves a horrific trace in the soil, which can poison, thousands of generations into the future. That's why it's banned. And so what Israel's doing, of course, is not being addressed by the United Nations, which is a rather neutered institution, and it's quite understandable and correct that the new boss of Hezbollah is demanding the Lebanese make efforts to maintain their own borders and their own nationality. If this is allowed to continue, this border violation, I think we're going to start to see a complete breakdown in world law and order.
Exactly, considering this world order that you're talking about, given Israel's long track record of violating agreements, whether in Lebanon, Palestine, or elsewhere, how sustainable do you think this reckless behavior is in the coming world order? Some people say it's a multipolar world order. What do you think about it?
Well, what it is, it's really like a cell dividing. The world is starting to divide into different alliances with different superpowers. It's becoming impossible, very difficult anyway, to continue on as an independent state. This is pushing us towards world war. Inevitably, some kind of massive conflict will happen in the future if this is allowed to continue. And it's not just countries in that region which the Israelis have been infiltrating and attacking. I would even suggest that it's possible that there has been either US or Israeli cyber attack on Spain today, cutting out their power. I mean, they immediately say in Spain that, oh, well, it can't possibly be sabotage or a cyber attack. I would say that's almost the most likely cause. And the reason they don't like to say that is because in fact, many nations' electricity networks are incredibly vulnerable to hacking and cyber attack. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happened today, but if you notice at the end of last week, the Spanish cancelled an arms contract, a multi-million-dollar arms contract with Spain. So it could simply be that somebody in Israel has said, right, well, let's hit the Spanish back for that decision. I'm not saying that's happened, but these are the sorts of things I think we should be entertaining as possibilities. And it's certainly suspicious that the Spanish have said, oh, it's not, we're ruling out sabotage, it can't be a cyber attack. That in itself sounds to me like a lie, because they can't possibly know that. So I think the Israelis, along with their American and British friends and some other allied countries, are actually the modern axis of evil who are trying to drive us all towards a third world war. And the sooner we put a stop to their war crimes in Gaza specifically, and also, of course, in Lebanon and other countries, the better.
Exactly. And my final question, with Netanyahu politically weakened at home and militarily stuck on multiple fronts, Mr. Gosling, how does Israel's continued aggression in Lebanon reflect its growing confusion or desperation?
Well, I think you're right. They are getting desperate, and the evidence for that is that they are going down this route of the decapitation strategy. That is to say, just literally assassinating, murdering their political opponents in the surrounding countries. This really, I mean, we've seen obviously the assassination of a Russian general as well at the end of last week. This sort of tactic does show absolute desperation because the countries that do it are generally very badly led. The leadership is surrounded by sycophants. And what happens to countries like Lebanon, and organizations like Hezbollah, and countries like Russia, is it makes absolutely no difference if you take out a leader, because it's a well-organized country where there are plenty of other leadership, brave and courageous leadership individuals who will simply continue exactly the same policy as I'm sure Hezbollah is doing. And so these are all examples of desperation. I think in a way they're painting themselves into a corner. It's a very evil corner. Some would say even a satanic corner, where they have realized, and Netanyahu specifically has realized, that his own people tried to put him in jail for fraud. Now the whole world is pointing the finger at him and saying, you're committing war crimes, you're going to have to go to prison. And he knows that as soon as he stops fighting, as soon as he stops attacking, committing more war crimes, he's likely to be replaced and put in jail. So he's, in a way, the whole world is having to suffer because nobody has managed to put this man, this war criminal, in prison.
Absolutely. Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol. Thank you for your time tonight.